Hello, kidney warriors. James here from Dadvice TV, your online kidney health coach. And this is Dadvice TV Live. And for those of you that are new, welcome. We do live shows all the time. As a matter of fact, this week we have 4 episodes. And this Friday, I have Dr. Roy, who is one of the creators of the implantable artificial kidney. It's going to be right here live talking about the progress they've made and what they still have ahead of them before we get an artificial kidney to implant, so we don't need transplants anymore. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about myself, and we're going to jump right on into today's topic because we got Jen here in the kitchen. You guys probably saw her during the countdown getting ready to make something awesome for us. My name is James, and if you're new, go ahead and introduce yourself. We have a great community here. We're very supportive and very helpful, and we'd like to get to know you. Now, I am not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a renal dietitian. I'm just a regular person. About 2 years ago, I spent a week in the ICU. My kidneys were shot. I had no clue, but I discovered I had stage 5 kidney failure. Now, while I was there, the doctors got my GFR up and stable to 13 and said, James, that's as good as it's going to get. You need dialysis and a transplant. Well, I never did either of those. Instead, I made diet and lifestyle changes instantly, right away. Dr. Pepper, gone. Wendy's, sorry, not going to see anymore. McDonald's, I worked with my doctors, got my blood pressure under control. I started exercising, being more active. I worked with a renal dietitian, the most secret and helpful person to living a great life with kidney disease. And they helped me to eat better so that I was reducing the burden that I placed on my kidneys. Now today, I'm stage 3, but more importantly, I don't have a single symptom. Now my kidneys, they're still shot. They're no better than they were before. Maybe a little less inflammation because I'm not putting a lot of stress on them, but they're still scarred, shriveled, and damaged. I can't undo that, but there's things I've done to where I can live with it and have a normal life and not let my kidneys hold me back. As a matter of fact, what I say is I kick kidney disease to the curb. So that tells you a little bit about myself for those of you that are new. Our guest today, she is our favorite renal dietitian, been with Dadvice TV, it seems like from the beginning. Welcome, Jen Hernandez. Hey, Jen.
Hey, James. Hey, everybody. So good to be back here. And I know I have a little bit of a different background for you guys, but you know that I'm really excited for tonight.
And tonight we're going to be talking, first, before we jump into that, for those that are new and they don't know what is a renal dietitian, can you tell them a little bit about what one is?
Yes. So I am a registered dietitian. I've gone through my schooling, my internship, passed a national exam to become a registered dietitian in the United States. And then after a few years working with people with kidney disease through earlier kidney disease until late and dialysis stages of kidney disease, I decided to take my education and my experience the next step further. I did another 2,000 hours working with people with CKD, did another exam, became a board certified renal dietitian. And that's what I do now as my job, as my career, is to help people with kidney disease keep their kidneys healthy and help them stay off of dialysis for as long as possible. So that's what I get to do. And I am always so honored to help people in the CKD world do what they're doing and just be a part of it. It's always so wonderful.
Now, for people who want to learn more about Jen, she has a website. I'm going to put it right here on the top. Here it comes. You guys ready? Whoop, boom. There it is. JenHernandez.com. Also, she has an awesome and free Facebook group called Plant Powered Kidneys. And in there, you're going to get all sorts of tips from her, including cooking videos. You do them all the time. Is it every Thursday? Is that what it is?
I do my live videos on Thursdays. I don't do cooking demos every single Thursday. Especially right now, you guys know that, well, if you've been watching me on social media or if you hear me talk in probably even I've mentioned it here, that we're still in the middle of a move transition. So this is actually our rental space kitchen, which I'm very grateful to have, but it's not my kitchen. It's not my stuff. So, it's just a curveball that gets thrown. But I do love to do cooking demos. I do them in the group. I love seeing what people post and share in the group because
Hmm.
so many people share really inspiring pictures of what they're eating. They share inspirational stories about their own results from what they've done going plant-based with CKD. And and they're not my clients. They're just people that are doing it themselves and seeing results, which is really, really inspiring. So it is just a really, really great group to be in. And I'm so happy to have been able to create a safe place like this for kidney warriors.
Yep. And for those of you that are out there that are new, eating a plant-based diet is a great option when you have kidney disease. But if you're like me and you're not ready to go 100% into the plant-based, you can still pick up a lot from Jen. She's not going to force you to go all plant-based because we're all a little bit different. And, it's okay to have a little bit of animal protein here and there. You just don't want to be going out to Longhorn Steakhouse every night and having a great big giant ribeye. Oh, my old dream. I haven't had one since last December. I'm going to wait. I'm going to make it at least a year without a ribeye.
Wow, nice.
Hey, if I made it this far, I can keep giving it up.
Exactly, exactly. And the other thing about plant-based is that just like you said, James, it doesn't mean 100% vegan. So across the spectrum, plant-based, to me, the way I define it and the way I explain it to a lot of people is that if you think about that old school food pyramid, that bottom part is the fruits and vegetables. That's really what we're looking for. So if you have smaller increments, less things up top, that can be acceptable depending on what's going on with your health. But the base, that foundation is from plants, no matter what. And getting all those plants, all those fruits and vegetables are really, really helpful. So actually tonight, being in the kitchen, I'm not going to show you something that's completely vegan. I'm going to show you something that's kind of in between, and I'll talk more about why I chose this recipe. But I'm really excited to share it with you guys.
Yeah. Now, before we jump into that, what makes a recipe kidney friendly or good for a kidney diet?
So you want to, when you're looking at recipes online, for one, you want to make sure the sodium's listed. And you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on that because everybody really across the board is to be paying attention to sodium. So whether your kidney disease is caused by high blood pressure or not, kidney disease can cause high blood pressure as well. So you really, really want to be careful with salt. When you're looking at recipes, if it doesn't list the sodium, it doesn't mean there's no sodium. If there's no nutrition information, to me, that's kind of something just to be a little cautious about. Now we've talked about like chronometer, using something like that externally,
Yep.
but I would hate for you to go through the whole process and put it in there to find out, oh, well, I can't have it anyway. So if you find recipes, at least look for the nutrition information and see that it's listed there. So sodium is really the number one thing. The other thing that we're looking at is protein. Now, this is another thing that across the spectrum of CKD, it's not going to be the same for every person. It's very, very individualized, but you want to at least have that information that you're aware of and looking at. So earlier stages of CKD will have most likely a little bit more flexibility with their protein or a little bit more. People in later stages of kidney disease are more likely going to need to be more careful, reserved with their protein intake. And then dialysis, it's almost like a 180 where on dialysis, you need a lot more protein. So that's going to be something that you want to pay attention to with being on dialysis. That's a whole different thing. Then there's also potassium. You guys know we've talked a lot about this. Everybody, I feel like, is very, very aware of potassium. And that's something that almost people are like hyper focused on. So look at the potassium and just find it and understand where that percentage fits into what your needs should be, how much you should be having. Again, it might be restricted, depends on your labs. It might not be restricted, depends on your labs. It might be encouraged, depends on your labs. Really, really depends on your labs. James, I know you were talking about this. We were talking about just last week.
That's where mine is. And that's a key point is we all are different. We are different. Usually when you guys go out there on the internet and you see it talk about, hey, you got kidney disease, you got to reduce. I don't reduce potassium. Actually, I can't. I'll end up back in the ICU because I have a problem for some reason holding on to potassium. And in a way, I see it as a blessing. I get to eat a lot of potatoes and things like that normally I would eat only a little bit of. But now a banana, I'll eat the whole thing and I'm enjoying it. But that just demonstrates how we all are unique and different. So what works for one person may not necessarily work for you. So it's great to always check with your own dietitian, your own doctors, to see what you need specifically. But we're going to talk about in general things that are always good to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, yeah. And then the one other one, as far as looking for a kidney-friendly recipe, people also focus a lot on phosphorus. And it's not just something to look at the milligrams of phosphorus. You want to look at where that phosphorus is coming from. So if you guys have heard me talk about this before, it matters if it's organic or inorganic. And organic comes from whole foods. It's not very easily digestible by us. We don't have the mechanisms in our body to break it down. But the inorganic, and that comes from added phosphates, it comes from the ingredient list is where you're going to see it. That is a kind of a no-go. So that is something you really, really want to be careful of, especially if you've been told to watch your phosphorus. If you're still having problems with managing your phosphorus and you are really diligently checking every single label and making sure there is no phosphorus in your diet, then you might want to look at some of the higher phosphorus organic foods. But really, I don't find a lot of people, once they eliminate all of the added phosphorus, it's rarely a problem at that point.
Yeah. Now, where are some places? So we can all go and buy cookbooks, renal cookbooks. And I'll tell you guys, I probably bought all of them off of Amazon. Some of them I like. Most of them, they're collecting dust. They're just stacked up there. But where are some places that you recommend we can go to find some diets or some recipes?
Well, I do have a list on my Amazon shop, and if I don't have that link, I think it might be in what the notes I sent you, James. But
I'll
I
make
do
sure
have
it
a
gets
list
added to
of
the
cookbooks.
description if it's not there.
Awesome. Okay, so I do have a list on my Amazon shop that of renal cookbooks that are written by dietitians that understand more about the renal diet. I will just say, based on the publication, when they were printed, they might have a little bit more outdated things. So talking about, phosphorus, restricting whole grains, that's been something that's been argued and successfully, in my opinion, successfully argued. So you want to keep that in mind. Other sources, really, really the biggest ones for free recipes online are going to be a lot of the dialysis clinics, the dialysis companies. So for one, we have DaVita and we have Fresenius. I've worked at both of those companies when I was working in dialysis. DaVita has a much larger database of all kinds of recipes that are kidney friendly. Fresenius is working on growing their database, but it's still a little bit more of a baby at this point. But they do both have resources there. There's also DCI, Dialysis Clinics Incorporated, I believe is what it is. I don't have my notes in front of me, James. So
I'm trying to scroll to find it because I don't know that. Yeah, DCI. I don't know what it stands for because it's not written here.
I put it further in the text. So let's see. So we have those, and the only thing we can talk more about this. And actually, I'm going to start cutting while we're talking about it. But really, the concern that I have with those companies is that their primary focus are people on dialysis. And if you're not on dialysis and you're looking at those companies, they see you as you might be a client of ours in the future. You might be going to dialysis in the future. So they want to give you resources, but you're not their primary client. No offense, guys. That's just the way it is. That's the way it goes. And they want to help people with kidney disease, but ultimately they are a dialysis company. So in that case, there's more recipes that are focused on high protein. There's more focused recipes for the dialysis side of things. And then the CKD side isn't quite as robust. So the dialysis companies, while they can be a great source, they're going to be some of the most restrictive of potassium, phosphorus, sodium, whereas they're not going to restrict protein very much.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. When I go to the big kidney websites or the dialysis center websites, most of it is focused on assuming, hey, you're going to get on dialysis or you are there, or
Mm-hmm.
transplants. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I have a list on dadvicetv.com of lots of websites from around the world that have free online recipes. A great thing is don't just stick with the United States. The
Yeah.
UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. There's lots of great recipe sites. And then there's also localized kidney support groups that may have online recipes. So
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of built a list there, but you have a list for us, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that was part of what I wanted to provide you guys this week, is really a roundup of a lot of these different companies, and then just kind of giving you some of an expectation of what you can get when you are looking into these different sources for your recipes. So I kind of like went through them, took a look at what they had offered, and then did a pros and cons for each of them. So that'll be something that you guys will have access to on my blog, which will be up and running for you as well. Um,
And to get to
I
your
guess,
blog, they just go to your website,
yep.
jenhernandez.com, and there is a link for the blog in the top menu.
Yep, under the resources, it'll be listed there.
So what are we making today? I do recognize that it's not in my kitchen. That is a vegetable. Yes, a vegetable that I have never purchased yet, but I do eat it often in a lot of food.
Okay.
I,
Okay.
my purchasing is very predictable. First of all, I got to get my
Okay.
80 pounds of apples. That fills my cart.
That's true. That's true. We know your apples.
Yes. And my
Well,
kids both love the apples too. We actually do go through bags and bags of them every week.
well, what I did right now, so you guys know, I am making, I'll make sure my camera's good. I am making a sweet potato crostini. So this is sliced sweet potato. And when I went to the grocery store and got these sweet potatoes, I looked, potatoes typically have more of like a football kind of shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these ones, I intentionally found ones that are more skinny and longer. That way, when I cut them, it's like cutting a roll of cookie dough, that you have more equal or even sizes. So I cut two of these sweet potatoes into these. And if you can imagine, this is going to turn into my little bite-sized plate because I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
top it with some goodies. So to prepare, I already have my oven set at 375. I have my potato slices cut up into the rounds. Now, if you're concerned about potassium for your potatoes, for one, this is still only about, for the serving, 150 milligrams of potassium. So it's lower in potassium.
Yes, it's
And
quite
one of
low.
the reasons, yeah, and one of the reasons for that is because you're not sitting down to the entire potato. So this is again that concept of kind of portion control,
Mm-hmm.
having a taste of it, but not gorging on it and not having so much of it that it becomes a concern. So I have that. I'm going to move my computer over. So I have a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm just going to toss these around. I'm going to use a little bit of salt. And again, the more you do cooking at home, I tell a lot of my clients this too, the more that you're cooking at home, the less I'm going to be worried about with salt, because this is not the way people get too much salt in their diet. The way you get too much salt in your diet is if you're doing too much fast food, too much takeout,
Mm-hmm.
too much anything. I feel like my
All
camera's
that
slipping. So before anything
all that
happens.
processed food.
Yeah,
Just loaded
exactly.
with salt. They treat salt like it's a flavor instead of a spice, something to add just a little something.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I put a little bit of salt on here. I tossed them with the olive oil. One other tip too, this cutting board is plastic. It's very slippery. So if you have a slippery plastic cutting board or nothing that has anything rubber on the bottom, you could either line the bottom using a hot glue gun, and you could just kind of trace it around and let it dry completely. And then that will help create basically some hold on the kitchen countertop. Or you can do what I did. I just laid out a kitchen towel on the top of the stove,
Yep.
because I'm not using the oven right now, and that will help create some friction so that it's not moving around a lot. Because if I didn't do that, this would move around a lot. So I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to use it again in a second here, but I need to prepare my potato rounds.
And you've put nothing on that pan, just a regular nonstick pan?
Regular baking sheet. It can be a risky move. I'm not going to lie, but I did coat the potatoes in some olive oil, so that will help as well. And again, this one I don't want. Again, this recipe is using 2 potatoes, making 10 servings. So this is a great holiday appetizer that you could pass out with your family or friends if you're having a safe get together this year. This is something really nice, but again, because you're having a few bites of the potato, it's not going to rack up in potassium. I'm going to leave those little around the bottom, the ends on there, because they're just going to be so tasty. Okay, so I have these on here, just laid out on the sheet. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. Okay, I'm going to put these in the oven at 375 for 15 minutes. And while that's going, I'm going to prepare the other parts of everything that we're going to be putting on top of the potatoes. So
now, do you need to set a timer? I'm awful with cooking. My timer seems to be the smoke detector.
I'll set a timer on my watch. It's a good idea. Sometimes I do. Let me see. It's going to take me. I changed my watch settings, and now I have to figure out how to use it all over again. Timer. There we go.
Just tell Siri.
Okay. I turn off Siri because Siri jumps in at like the weirdest times, and I'm just like, no, this is not now. Now I don't need. I was walking Lucy earlier, and I had an idea of a new download for you guys, and I was like, hey, make sure you remind me to do this, and then she ignored me, and I was like, okay, well, thank you very much for that. So Siri and I are not on speaking terms right now. Okay, so the next part that I'm going to prepare is, okay, well, first of all, does anybody know what this is?
Oh, that is not an apricot. I know what that is because they come in beverages, and they were all over the place in California. Pomegranate. Boom.
Yep, this is a pomegranate. I wish I could juggle.
I can juggle with one item.
Yeah, see, there we go.
It's called catch.
So this this is a pomegranate, and it is something great that has a lot of good antioxidants, vitamin C. It also has a lot of potassium if you go overboard with it. So something like pomegranate juice would be high in potassium. What we're going to do now, though, is I'm actually going to use the arils, which are the little seeds inside, and that's going to be part of the festive coloring and decor that we're going to garnish the potatoes with. So it can get really messy, and I'm talking about like, this is a new shirt, and I really hope I don't stain it. But what you want to do.
This will be interesting because my kids love pomegranate, and I have never purchased one because I had no clue how to prepare it.
So I cut it in half, and I will show it to you. This is cut in half. Okay, this one's really juicy, which is good. Now, the easiest way to get the seeds out is to do it in water. So I have this big bowl of water that I've been moving around, and I'm going to keep these in the water. That way, as I'm pulling the arils out, it's not splashing and squirting all over the place. And one day I will have a second camera or something, so you guys get a better visual of me doing this. But you really just kind of want to break. So I break it apart. I don't know how much you can zoom in on that.
Yep. Hold on one second. There we go.
So it's almost like a honeycomb kind of a thing. They have all these little seeds, and they're really good. And they have this nice like little bit of a crunch to them, bright flavor, really, really good. But anyway, this is probably one of the safest ways to get the arils out without staining everything. Because if you see on my cutting board right now, it looks like a murder, essentially.
Yes, it looks like you got a finger there.
Yeah, exactly. So if you could imagine me trying to take out, and I see the water in the bowl is The water in the bowl is getting a little more red in color because of the juice that's coming out from some of these as I'm pulling them out. But here's my progress. I'm not going to take it all completely apart for you guys because, that's just not very exciting. But this is a really safe way. And if you have kids, this is something that you can give them and you make it a project.
Yes.
But the goal is to get all of them out without spilling any water. That's the goal. So it is really, really easy. This recipe only calls for 1/3 of a cup of the arrows. So again, it's not the whole thing. And by keeping it to 1/3 of a cup, we're again keeping the potassium more in check.
Now, any risk of that staining your hands and turning them red?
It is a lovely color, but it doesn't need to be on us.
Yes, I now worry about that. I made a mistake once. For those of you guys out there, you probably know I do dye my hair, even though I have just a tad a little bit of gray and I don't like it, so I dye it. And there was one show a while ago, I dyed my hair right before the show, and it kind of stained your forehead.
I've experienced that before as well, and
Yes.
you learn, that's for sure.
I ended up combing my hair differently to cover the edges, and it kept looking upwards to try to hide it.
All right, so that's the end of what we have. So everything's been pulled apart. Kind of looks like a honeycomb to me. That's what it makes me think of. And then in the water, you have the arrows, the little pomegranate seeds that you just can scoop out, drain with your hands, drain with a strainer. I mean, if I had a strainer, then I would probably do that because that would be much faster. But you guys know this is not my kitchen, so we are going with the flow. Are there any other questions that are popping up or anything that I should be answering?
No questions yet. If you guys have any questions, well, where will we be able to find the recipe for this?
Yeah, so in my newest blog, which I talk about some resources for you guys about where to find recipes that are kidney friendly and what to look for, you will see at the very bottom of that a link to download 5 kidney friendly holiday recipes.
Yeah.
And that includes this one. Yes.
Awesome.
So you'll get the nutrition information and you will be able to check all of those out. They are, for the most part, plant-based. This one is not, like I said, not entirely plant-based, but you can always modify recipes as much as you want to have them fit what you would like to have. Okay. So I'm going to leave the rest of the pomegranate there to hang out. Here is the up close pomegranate arrows.
Yep, looks great.
They are like nature's gushers. You guys remember gushers?
Oh yes.
Yeah, they're nature's gushers because you bite into it and there's that seed, but there's that little burst of juice. Very holiday festive type of flavor to them. So this is one of our toppings. The other topping that I'm going to have are some walnuts. So this is a good source of heart healthy fats. So really, really awesome. It is also a little bit of protein, a little bit of fiber. In here, I have 2/3 of a cup. Let me tilt it. I have 2/3 of a cup that are in the saucepan because I'm going to toast them on the oven or on the stovetop. There we go. Oh. So I'm going to turn this just to like a low medium, even actually lower than that.
I love walnuts and pecans and almonds, and I've never toasted them at home.
It makes a huge, huge difference in the flavor. I wonder if anybody else has done it in the audience. It absolutely makes a huge difference, and it doesn't take anything. It really doesn't. I'm just going to let them warm over this low heat until I can smell them and they get more aromatic, and it brings out just this warm, nuttier, more rich flavor.
Yep.
Super easy. Any nut you can do this to, and it will add a huge depth of flavor. It does not need to be toasted in the oven for it to have that same kind of rich flavor to come out.
Now, for those that don't want to use salt, are there other spices that are good to use on the sweet potato?
Yes. So what I'm actually adding tonight as well is thyme. And this is probably one of my favorite, let me see if I can tilt that. There we go. One of my favorite herbs ever is thyme. And I can't even explain why. I just love the way it smells and tastes. And it always seems to add the best aromatics to a dish. So I love it with mushrooms. I love it with potatoes. I love it with corn or grits is great. It's really good. Very, very good. And this is another thing where a little goes a long way too.
So your stove is on.
So, my stove is on. I really miss my gas stovetop. I'm getting used to the electric stovetop. Yeah. But it's different. It's different. So there's that. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I've got everything so far. The last ingredient that I'm going to use is going to be crumbled goat cheese. So this is where the not entirely plant-based comes in, but the goat cheese, goat milk products are some of the lowest in acidity. So if anyone's familiar with the potential renal acid load or PRAL, this is one of the lowest. Actually, it is a net or a negative PRAL food. That's another term you might hear of. Basically, it means it's more alkaline. So focusing on foods that are more alkaline instead of acidic, something like goat cheese could be something that you could include in your diet as a dairy option for you. Even if you're entirely plant-based, if your kidney function's good, if you get the green light from your dietitian, I would say maybe your doctor, but I still, you guys know I'm not 100% confident on doctors giving nutrition recommendations. So be careful with that. But this is a great option. So you can buy it in the little logs, but this is already crumbled, which is fantastic for the recipe because I'm going to add a sprinkling on the potatoes as well, or yeah, on the potatoes as well.
Yep. Now, Joyce asks, can you use dried thyme?
You can, yes. The dried thyme, any dried herb, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time we talked about ginger and about spices. Any kind of spice that is dried, a little bit goes a longer way. So it's about a 1/4 teaspoon per tablespoon, I want to say it was, of fresh. So the fresh is more if you're looking for more volume. There's also a little bit more of the aromatic flavor in the fresh. Mm-hmm. I prefer dried in things that I'm going to incorporate into a baking something, cooking something, if it gives time to sit and basically infuse into the food. In something like this where I'm garnishing it on the top at the end, it's not going to have that time. So you're going to want a little bit more, more amount of the time. So you can, but you might just notice a taste difference if you tried it fresh versus dried.
Yep. Sounds good. Now so
right.
So the walnuts, is that like a medium heat or a high heat?
This is low medium. You definitely want to go on the lower side because once you get them to, I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Because if you go too high, once you go too high, they burn like that and there's no going back from it. You have to trash them. You have to do it all over again. So it's better to be low and slow with it. I remember years ago watching Rachel Ray do her cooking shows, and she would always say like the nose. And that's really with the toasting of the nuts, is that as soon as you start to smell it, then that's when you take it off the heat, because that's all you need. It's what it's doing is it's working on the fat of the nut. And that's where you get most of the smell coming from, is those oils that are kind of opening up in a sense, and you're able to smell them more.
Now we have a question from Kathy, and I'm going to try to pronounce this. Is chèvre a type of goat cheese? And I may have just butchered that word.
You know what? I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say it out loud. I've never said it out loud, so I cannot correct you or I can't help you with that. Can't argue it either. So there's that. Um, it is a type, yes, yes. And that would be a type of goat cheese that could be a potential option for you to include in your diet.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm starting to smell them. And again, it's not with toasting them. You don't necessarily need to see them visibly toasted. You don't need to see them turn into a whole new color because it's better to be safe than sorry. So I'm just kind of keeping a close eye because these will go from not done to take them off the heat done very quickly. But I'm also saying that with my experience using the gas stovetop and not the electric, and electric is still kind of a learning curve for me. So
Yep.
it's another gift you guys get is me relearning how to use electric tonight.
Joyce, let me know it's Chevrolet.
There
We
we go.
go.
Okay.
I'm awful with pronouncing words from just reading them. I have some very hilarious stories of me mispronouncing things badly.
It's a lot of these things are really tough, and then our language doesn't make it any easier because we can interpret things with the English language in so many ways. So I'm taking the thyme off of the stem. The easiest way to do this is to grab it so it's growing from the root here. Grab it closer to the top and work your way backwards, and it peels off. Okay, because we don't want the stem, we want the leaves. And when I do that, I get my handful of leaves and I don't have the stem. If you are cooking a soup or something, you can throw this in all in its entirety, and then you can pull it out at the end. So it infuses the flavor, but you don't have this stuff kind of floating around. And my alarm went off, so.
Yes, it's been about 15 minutes.
Yeah. Where did, I don't know where our hot pads went, so. So it is what it is.
And for anyone who's joining us a little late in the show, while these are based on sweet potatoes, this is not a high potassium treat. Unless you sit there and you eat the whole 10 servings worth, then it's going to be too much.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so I'm just lifting these up really quick. I'm going to flip them and I'm going to let them go for about another 5 more minutes. And then that will be it. That will be all I need to do before I finish chopping them. And I'm going to flip them while I'm remembering. So for the first cooking time, you do it for 15 minutes. The second cooking time, 5 to 10 minutes. And they're already starting to get this nice orange, this deeper orange color that they get. Now, some of them I don't even have to worry. So this, again, is just a really nice holiday kind of themed option. And if you want to even expand it into other ideas, think of the sweet potato crostini as basically a plate of whatever you want to put for toppings. It doesn't have to be the combination that we have set here. It can be whatever sounds good for you. But because we're doing the sweet potato in smaller amounts, we're controlling the potassium, making it more kidney friendly. And if you really, 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 really worried about potassium, you can always double boil them. Slice them into the rounds just like this. Put them in water, cold water that's filled and covered over them. Bring it to a boil. Boil it for 10 to 15 minutes. Turn off the heat, drain, dump them, fill it up with new hot water, and then let it boil again for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then all you would need to do from this point is get them on a baking sheet and then probably broil them for a couple minutes to help them get a little more crispy instead of just boiled soft. And that will be a way that you can help reduce the potassium by up to 75%.
There we go, back in the oven.
Toasty. All right, I'm gonna do 5 minutes. So I just turned off the heat. I turned off the heat for the walnuts. And I'm gonna let them sit on there because that should be good. I didn't let them go too long. Okay, now I just have to finish up the thyme. And really, because the leaves are so tiny, I don't really need to dice it or chop it up much at all because they're very, very tiny leaves. But there are some of a little bit of the small stems that still stay on. So I'm going to do a really quick just run through with my knife. But I would love to hear, I mean, while I'm doing this, I would love to hear if anybody else has any holiday food traditions, or if there's a recipe that they're already kind of thinking about how they want to make kidney friendly for the holidays. Like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. What's there? So for me, we're kind of living in a bubble.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will probably make a large, very healthy Thanksgiving dinner here, and we'll probably go visit my relatives or have them come visit. They're only about 45 minutes away. They're really close. Have them come visit and have a meal. My mom loves making the whole Christmas dinner type stuff. All my favorites. You know, not all of them are super kidney friendly, so it's small portions. And usually I eat a bunch of deviled eggs, way too many of those. Let's see if anybody out here in the comments is sharing what they do for the holidays. And we talked about last time, one of my favorite treats was potato candy. Something one of my dad's grandmother used to make, Grandma Pearl. And oh, I love potato candy. As a matter of fact, someone emailed me a picture of a recipe, a very old recipe of it, and said, "Is this it?" I was like, "Yes, that is it."
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and Joy says her and her husband are thinking of splitting a Cornish hen, but they're a little concerned about the protein.
Something to just kind of check with your healthcare team, check with your dietitian, check with your doctor, to see if that's something that would be okay for you. And when in doubt, just have a little bit of it. That's the most important thing, is just, that's really what Thanksgiving is about, because there's so much variety that we usually all just end up having like a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and then it ends up being a full meal anyway, because it's a lot of food.
Yeah, now we have a few things that some are a little healthier than others. Kelly says cheesy hash brown casserole. Oh my goodness, that sounds so good, but it doesn't sound like it fits my diet.
Sounds very indulgent.
Yes, that'd be a lot of carbs. I look at carbs and they seem to just jump onto my gut.
Some people are more sensitive to them than others, and it's good to be aware of how your body reacts to food.
Yeah, Pat says, "Oh, this is a great one. Roasted cauliflower in olive oil with garlic pepper powder."
So good.
Yeah, so much you can do with cauliflower. It is like magic. And Dale and Debbie are hoping to find a recipe for sugar-free cherry pie. Oh, I love cherry pie. I love cherries. It's great for helping, keep gout away. Yeah, I'll have to look and try to find a good recipe for a sugar-free one.
Even looking for a lower sugar option could be a great way to go. And oftentimes you can do that when you're making it homemade instead of the canned pie fillings, which is essentially done for you. You just have to do what they give you. You don't have a choice. So that could be a potential option. Look at some good homemade ones.
Are there any sugar substitutes that you think are better for kidney patients?
I really recommend the more natural ones. Like stevia is a good option. And it doesn't have to be 100% of that either. Even just doing half. So if the recipe calls for like a half a cup of sugar, doing a quarter cup of regular sugar and a quarter cup of stevia really, really helps out. And it still helps balance out. Sometimes like people say that has that different sugar taste to it.
Yep.
So it can help if you still include a little bit of regular sugar in there too.
Yeah, and Natalie, who's a regular here, says cabbage steaks. There's so much cauliflower and cabbage, so much you can do, and they both absorb flavor so well.
Yep.
And Mavis is commenting on the cheesy casserole, saying, "Hey, I bet you there's a cauliflower nutritional yeast version you can make."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. These look so good.
Oh
And you know
yeah.
what? I was really excited, James, to do this cooking demo because every time we talk about how hungry we get, and I'm like, hey, at least I'm making my meal. Like, at least I got something.
Yeah, it seems like
Although the
every time you and I do these shows, it's always grocery day for me. I got to go to Kroger after this and get groceries.
oh,
I was going to do it
that's
last
rough.
night, but I was like, I got enough food in the fridge. I'll wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's rough. That's tough because I would at least have to have a snack before I went for sure.
I ate a few almonds a little bit earlier.
Well, I mean that counts. That counts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna move one of my earbuds in here just in case I lose all of it. Okay, so now all I need to really work on here, and let me see if I can bring you guys a little bit more in. Do my own.
Let me switch to this other layout and make your screen bigger. Boom. There we go.
There we go. Let's see if that helps. Okay, so
Joyce
all I'm
says
gonna
we
do
need
now.
smell-o-vision. I agree, Joyce. That stuff looks good there.
Me too. I totally on board for that. All right, so what I'm going to do is add the goat cheese first because one, the sweet potatoes are still warm, so it will kind of melt and serve to be like a little bit of glue. So I'm just going to use a little bit, again, like a couple crumbles on here, nothing crazy, because this is just going to be a bite-sized thing.
And while you're doing that, Kelly says he spends less money if he eats before he goes grocery shopping. I agree 100% with you, Kelly.
Yep.
Oh, never go shopping hungry, but I will tonight.
Can you grab something to eat before you go?
Well, the good news is anything extra I buy, the kids just eat it.
Yeah.
And I don't grab snacks. I'm not grabbing potato chips or anything like that. I may just be like, hey, let me grab an extra bag of apples. And it's just a different variety. Hey, we're going to have 4 different kinds of apples for the next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's just a matter of changing it up a little bit.
Yeah. And everything I buy is on the healthy side. So having a little extra doesn't hurt. Just some of it spoils. I try not to get too much where it spoils.
That's definitely the hard thing, is trying to make sure that sometimes I do the same thing. I get really, I would say, excited about my cooking or excited about a bunch of recipes. And then something goes bad because I just didn't have enough time or whatever the case was to get to it.
Yep.
I'm breaking up some of these bigger pieces of goat cheese with my hands so that I can spread them out a little bit more. Can you see the video okay, or is it still a little too far away?
No, we can see it. And I can zoom in a bit more for where they are there. Yeah, this is going to be very colorful when it's done, especially when you add those red things from the pomegranate.
Yes, yes. So that plus the little bit of the thyme of, so that green herb is also going to be adding some color too. So we've got the white, we've got the green, we've got the kind of caramely, I don't want to say just brown because walnuts are more than just that. But we've got all these colors, very, very easy to put together and just kind of cute and impressive really for your family. And this is, again, even this part here, putting them together could be something really fun for kids to do, kind of like mini make your own pizzas.
Yep.
And they would just get to put the cheese on there, put the walnuts, put the pomegranates.
It's going to look very fancy when it's all done.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty easy.
Yeah. I mean, we are knocking this out pretty well. And you guys, I mean, I've not been, what would you say, like super busy with this. I haven't been slaving away, getting a lot of stuff done. It's really just kind of, I was waiting for the potatoes to get done. That was the most part, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All you do is put them in, wait, flip them, put them in a little bit longer.
Yep, that's it. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to add are the walnuts. I probably could have chopped these up a little bit more. If you get the walnut pieces, sometimes you can just squeeze them with your hands to break them up a little bit more, because walnuts are pretty soft because of their fat content.
Mm-hmm.
And they're such a good, whoops, they are, I want to say they're the highest source of omega-3 fats from all the different kinds of nuts. So again, this is just a couple pieces on top of each one. And this stuff, because these little potato discs, they're not huge, so they're going to be piled up with a lot of good flavors.
Yep.
Do you have any other questions as I'm putting this on?
Yeah, let's see. Well, no more have come through. People are loving it. They're sharing a few recipes amongst themselves. Natalie was talking about how she makes a hummus wrap, and she uses a spinach wrap with shredded lettuce, carrots, and hummus, and some sprouts as she has them. That sounds good. Wraps are great. Even, for us, I'll occasionally make them, and I just use gigantic pieces of lettuce to make my wrap, and I love putting hummus in there and other stuff, and then a little bit of sweet. It's an Asian sauce. Sweet. Darn it! It's kind of
sweet chili.
Yeah, sweet chili sauce. There you go.
There we go.
I've gotten to where I absolutely love things with a little kick to them. And somebody earlier was talking about how they have a whole collection of different hot sauces and stuff that they use, which is a great option. And I found that spicy stuff like hot sauce helps me eat slower, which lets me enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Because I grew up, for some reason, inhaling my food. Like, the better it tasted, the faster I ate it, which means you're enjoying it less. It doesn't work.
I know, it's a shame, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's how
those
a lot
are looking
of people
very colorful.
Yeah. Oops. Some of the cheese is coming with me. It's getting nice and melty, but it's getting nice and melty on my fingers.
Yeah. Someone was recommending trying using an air fryer to do the potatoes.
Oh,
air
yeah,
fryers
that would be a great idea.
Very popular, or a little, we have a countertop convection oven. Carry over from
like
the olden. Yeah, it's from the olden days. We used to own a restaurant. We used it to always have fresh chocolate chip cookies ready. So as soon as you opened that door and came in, it was like, woo, I'm smelling something great.
Awesome.
I'm going to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good idea. That reminds me of, what's the hotel that always has the cookies?
Oh, yes. Oh, darn it. I when I travel, I go there. It's not the Marriott. Is it one of the Hyatt brands?
Maybe so. I can't remember, but it's this whole idea of it's very welcoming and inviting. All right. Yeah, these are so pretty.
Yeah. And Joyce mentioned that Frank's hot sauce now comes in a dried version that you use like a spice. That's awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I bet you if I plated these, if I had a larger platter, I could probably more quickly get them. I would just basically sprinkle everything across instead of individual pieces. But I don't have a platter here, so it is what it is.
Yep.
And then
Monica
finally,
and Judy have chimed in. It's Doubletree, and then Pat always said Hampton Inn. I've stayed at all those. Yes, lots of Doubletree. That must be the one. I
forgot one ingredient.
Cookie. Oh, honey.
So, honey, yes. And this one I am just gonna drizzle across.
I love honey. Yeah, and it's great that you don't need that much, because honey is very strong in flavor, which is great.
It is. It is. Yeah. So this I'm really just lightly drizzling across. Very, very lightly. I don't want it to have that much of a flavor. I don't want it to take over anything else, but that sweetness with the creaminess of the goat cheese and the brightness of the pomegranate, the crunch of the walnut, and then finally the fresh thyme that we're going to add.
Look at that. Oh, I can't wait till you bring it closer to the camera. I can see from here, though. It looks so good. And that's
I
not
just
just my
wish I had
stomach
a
talking.
I wish I had a nice platter to put it on because I feel like it would look so much better that way. But that's just me being like already in hostess mode of it's not finished yet. Let's see. Okay, there we go.
Look at that. Oh, those look delicious. Oh, awesome. And it really took very little effort to make all that.
Yeah. Yeah, we got that done at a pretty good time, pretty quick pace, I would say. And again, it wasn't, I'm moving my camera up. It wasn't a whole lot of work. It wasn't a lot of effort. It wasn't like a lot of fancy tools and tricks. It was just kind of something easy to put together and that you'd have for a nice, I mean, 10 servings. A lot of people could try this out and be good to go, right? This is for a good party.
Yep, and no fancy cutting, which I am like the slowest person with cutting. I just practice. I'll get better at it.
Yeah, that's really what it's about. Absolutely.
Fantastic. And this is like right at the top of the hour. Look at it. Boom.
Oh, hey.
For me, we were actually talking before the show. We're like, yeah, it'll probably end a little bit early. We just got the cooking part.
I always find a way to drag it out.
Oh no, it's great. And now for those of you guys, a reminder, you can go and find the recipe and learn more about other recipes that are kidney friendly at Jen's blog, and you can find it from her website, www.jenhernandez.com. It's way up there at the top. There you go. Perfect. And make sure Plant Powered Kidneys, great group to go and join. There is a questionnaire. You do need to answer all the questions.
Yes.
Because we try to keep out the people who really aren't there for kidney disease, the ones that are there to hawk, pretend, get better pills and stuff like that. No, we keep them out of the group. So answer those questions so you can get in. If you haven't done so already, make sure and subscribe to the Dadvice TV YouTube channel. You will get notifications as I schedule upcoming shows. Got an upcoming show tomorrow with Dr. Butt, and then this Friday, we are going to be talking to the creators of the implantable artificial kidney. Oh, that's going to be a huge show. And there's so much more coming the rest of this month and going forward. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And Jen, thank you so much again for your time here. It is always a pleasure and always so informative. And I learned something every single time.
It was a lot of fun. It was really, really great. So hopefully you guys try this recipe out. If you do, and you're on social media, well, you can share it in our Facebook group, or you can tag me on Instagram at Plant Powered Kidneys and let me see what you make, because I love looking at what you guys are up to.
Awesome. All right. We'll see everybody in the next video. Bye, everyone.
Bye.